right. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg McCann, as Ann said, president of the Federal Way Public Market. And here we are connecting commerce, community, and culture. First, welcome. Appreciate you sharing with us your most precious commodity, your time. Um, Federal Way has just made a huge milestone with the Link Light Rail opening. And now we have two stations, the Star Lake Station at 272nd, not too far from where I live, and the downtown station at 320th. And we believe Federal Way's next major milestone will be the opening of the Federal Way public market. So today we're going to share with you the update, the feasibility study, which strongly suggests that that this will in fact be a huge milestone for Federal Way. Um, we're going to talk about a bit about what the study finds. We're going to level set a little bit about the market so people understand where we're coming from. We'll talk about what this could mean for our region and our city and what comes next. But this is really about building what we think will be the heart and soul of a vibrant, connected downtown, the downtown that Federal Way has always deserved. So the agenda today, we'll talk about who we are, the vision for the market, why we need a market in Federal Way, and then get into the feasibility study, talk about the economic benefits of the market, some of the key findings and recommendations. We'll cover our progress so far, which has been amazing, and then the next steps, and of course, some questions. So as we go through, if you have any questions, please jot them down or put them in the chat, and we'll get to them after the presentation, which should be about between 15 and 20 minutes. So the Federal Way Public Market is a grassroots 501c3 organization, and you can see all the members there. We're pretty much a lot of long-term residents of Federal Way. Kind of got together in 2018 as a few of us to get started on this. We incorporated it as a 501c3 in 2021, and we've made huge strides along the way. But the most important thing is that we are all dedicated to developing a public market in Federal Way. Our vision is to create a vibrant, food-focused marketplace with local foods and global flavors. It will be the heart and soul of downtown. The public market will be reflective of our community and a place that residents of Federal Way and surrounding communities can call their own. And it will be a de facto community hub. Market will change the narrative on Federal Way and will be a regional attraction. We want to ensure that our beloved farmers market has a permanent home, a home with permanent cover, power, cold storage, and real bathrooms. We'll have a business incubator to help local entrepreneurs get started, not just with food, but other small vendors as well. The variety of goods is part of the attraction of a public market. The commercial kitchen can be used for classes and demonstrations or for vendors to create products for sale in the market. We also envision a plaza in front of the market, which could host any number of festivals or events like Oktoberfest, a holiday market, Lunar New Year, and more. Despite the word market, public markets are really a fundamentally social place. And that is really the key to their success and therefore, and also for their enduring success. So why a public market in Federal Way? Well, light rail presents a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to develop a downtown. There is property open right now in the downtown core of Federal Way that has not been opened in generations. And while that downtown area would get developed one way or another, we think the public market will help really create a vibrant downtown and distinguish it from any other downtown in the area. The local cities, Auburn and Renton, they all have downtowns because they were built like real cities way back when. Federal Way never had that. We have a chance to really create a unique downtown. Also, retail sales are leaving Federal Way. We've lost some big box stores. We've had some grocery store closures. The mall is pretty down on its luck right now. And the market is going to create a lot of jobs, and this is an opportunity to start bringing some of that retail sales back into the city, which will help the city with their tax revenue and help services for all of us in Federal Way. We really don't have, because we don't have a downtown, we don't have a central gathering place. We don't have a public square. There's no place that we would really go and hang out as a group. I mean, there are some things, you could have some stuff at Celebration Park, but that's kind of oriented to certain types of events. We really do need a central gathering place in the city. We currently have a minimal draw for visitors and tourists. We do have some good parks and garden areas, but there really isn't much else to really draw folks in. And we were just chatting earlier with Mark Ernst, who we'll talk about later, about how in Milwaukee the market is now like the place that you take people when you bring them into town, and that's what the public market will be for Federal Way. And there are thousands of units of housing coming in that downtown corridor between the TC3, the Town Center 3 property up next to the Performing Arts and Events Center, at the transit-oriented development site next to the light rail as well, and then across the street at the mall. There's there's thousands and thousands of units of housing coming, and 5 to 10,000 people will be living in that multi-block area here in the next 10, 15, 20 years. It's going to become its own neighborhood, really a downtown village. So the feasibility study has been completed. We went with really probably the preeminent public market development firm in the country, publicmarketdevelopment.com, headed by Aaron Zaretsky, who spent 15 years as a director of the Pike Place Market and has helped plan and manage over 65 public markets internationally, all of which are still in business. And he's helped raise over $250 million for public market development. And with us on the call today is Mark Ernst, who's listed as iPad. Hi, Mark. He's the most experienced public market architect in North America. And if you've ever been to the Bellevue Downtown Park, that was one of his early jobs as a young architect. The big reveal, the market is not just feasible, it will be transformative for the city and the surrounding area. So let's talk about it a bit. A lot of economic benefits will flow from a public market because public markets are economic engines. They really can drive the development of a neighborhood. That one in Milwaukee that Mark was talking about has completely changed the character of the neighborhood, really helped to bring it along. They host dozens of small businesses, businesses from as little as just a day table, a small booth, butcher, baker, florist, up to a full service restaurant or brew pub. There's really quite a variety of opportunities for folks to get started and to grow in a public market. Also, hundreds of jobs are possible in public markets. The public market logo you see on the side of the screen there, that is not accidentally chosen. That's the Pybus Public Market and kind of been our touchstone. That market is over in Wenatchee. It's a little smaller than what we are planning, but they support 120 full-time jobs and bring millions of dollars into the community. Check it out sometimes. So all that economic activity brings in millions of tax revenue for the city. The property values surrounding public markets tend to go up, which also increases the property tax for the city. That's pluses and minuses if you're a property owner. They also have much bigger draw than traditional retail, including tourists. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is here shortly. The surrounding businesses also benefit from the foot traffic. They come for the market, but then they'll spill out to other restaurants and retail establishments in the area. So it ends up being kind of a rising tide that lifts all the boats in the area. So some of the key findings. So 1.9 million people within a 30-minute drive time. So why is that important? Well, our traditional retail area in Federal Way by most standards is about 300,000 people. People that would go to a mall, say, or the Best Buy, so something like that. But public markets have a very different draw, a much bigger draw. And that's really defined by about a 30-minute Saturday morning drive time. And within that circle, there are nearly 2 million people. And a study at the Pike Place Market found that a really significant fraction, well over like 75% of adults in King County at the time they surveyed had been to the Pike Place Market within the last year. So you're talking about a huge draw. Maybe you go once or twice or three times a year, but that's an incredible number of people coming through your market. We have major transportation benefits here for where we want to put the market, and we'll show that in a little bit. Right next to I-5, right next to the Link Light Rail Station, very close to 99, even 18, not too far to the south. You think about getting into Pike Place Market or even the Olympia Farmers Market, and those are more challenging logistically to get into and out of. And if you can get to it easily, you're more likely to go. We have thousands of commuters daily that come along 320th and even more on the light rail. So every morning, and you'll see where it's going to be situated, the plan anyway, you'll have hundreds of commuters walking from the parking garage to the light rail station that will all pass through or past the market every day, both to and from. And Federal Way is the fifth most diverse small city in the area. A little bit more diverse than surrounding cities like Auburn and Renton, but of similar diversity. And why that's important here, we'll talk about shortly. So, some of the recommendations that have come from the study and from Aaron and Mark. First, this will be a regional market, not just Federal Way. Now, that's what we started with when we started this project. We were thinking about Federal Way, but over time, we've come to realize that this is really a regional market. And if you look at competition in public markets, you look at Pike Place and Olympia Farmers Market, which is really becoming a public market, we are almost dead center in between, which means we're not really cannibalizing their market. There's just that opportunity, that 1.9 million people that can come and be part of our market. And people tend to be very protective of their markets. They tend to view them as their markets over time, not so much like their Safeway or their QFC, but their markets, and they will support them. And over time, we will need to change the name probably from Federal Way Public Market to something that really reflects the regionality of it because we'll be serving South King and North Pierce counties, but we'll work on that over time. And it needs to be a cultural market. So I talked about how diverse the area is, and the market needs to reflect that diversity. In fact, it's really probably the secret sauce of the market. If you can get a sizable fraction of the different cultures and foods and crafts and art represented in the market, and that will rotate naturally over time with a lot of small vendors, that's what drives repeat visitors. People will go just to see what's new in the market, not necessarily with any intention of buying anything specifically. But what studies have found is people will go to the market and spend twice as much time and twice as much money in a public market than in traditional retail. And that's because they are walking along and they see something interesting. They can try it, they can talk to the person who made it, and then they end up buying it and off they go. It will need to be interactive. You really want to show how the food is produced and interact with the people who's producing the food. So think about roasting coffee, the roasting drum and the smells coming from that up in the front of the market. The person making the candies or baking the bread, and you can see it being worked. I could think back of times when my own kids were fascinated by watching the person decorating the cakes at Costco because you could look through the plexiglass and watch that happen. So that level of interactivity is really huge. It becomes almost a form of entertainment that you can get from a public market, and that really brings people in. The market needs to be of sufficient size, probably 40,000 square feet or bigger. We're targeting 50,000 plus in our market. And the reason is you need to be able to accommodate large enough businesses and enough different businesses to bring enough people in. So you might not be able to support a specialty cheese shop or a specialty butcher necessarily too many out in town, but together they can work, and a baker. So think about the things you get for dinner. Maybe you want to get some meat and cheese and bread, and instead of going to the local grocery store, you can go into the market and get this stuff that's made fresh, and you can talk to the people who make it, learn about it, and really enjoy the experience of not just shopping, but then ultimately preparing your food. And it needs to be big enough to be self-sufficient because our plan is to be financially self-sufficient as a market within about 3 years after opening. From what we've seen of other plans for smaller markets, if they're too small, 10 or 20 or 1,000 square feet or so, they basically end up on permanent life support. And we don't want that to happen. Nobody wants that to happen. We have to be relying on government funding to stay open. We will be financially self-sufficient is our goal. You really have to consider the surrounding amenities. So you can see a little bit of a view of a plaza in front of the market on that view on the left side of the screen. And that's really key to making the entire experience. You need, sitting areas and other kinds of things that will bring people down. And that's the public square that we really want to create. All of this is really about placemaking, about making a place where people want to be, a third place it's often called in the industry. Your first place is your house, your second place is usually work, third place is often a church or community group, but not everyone has that third place that they feel comfortable spending a lot of time in. And our goal is to make the public market be that third place for everybody. It becomes a de facto community hub where you just go just to go, just to see what's new, catch up with friends, but then experience the market and support local vendors. We really do want to connect all residents and really all the surrounding communities here around Federal Way. And for all of those things, we need community input because if it's going to serve the community has to have some say in how it's built and designed and the vendors and all those sorts of things. Because if we just guess of what people want and put that in there and you get it wrong, well, then it's not successful and it's not really community driven. And that's really part of our goal. The location. I mentioned the transit site. So here you see the newly opened train station, and there's four pink lined properties. These are the transit oriented development sites. So from top to bottom here on the left is one, two, and three, and number four is here where our logo sits. So one and two are already under bid to build housing above and retail or services below. But we really want to be and need to be on TOD4. In fact, when Mark and Aaron came out about 2 years ago, and we viewed this site from the old bus drop-off area, they both immediately pointed to that spot and said that is where the market needs to be. There are other properties that could serve, but none of them would be as good. And we'll talk about how we get to that spot here shortly. So progress. It's been tremendous progress. We spent a number of years just educating folks, talking, um, building relationships, and has really started to pay off. The feasibility study was paid for with Washington state taxpayer funding. Thank you, taxpayers. That includes me. And thank you to our 30th legislative district folks that got that through for us. And the fact that we got the study paid for and done is great. The fact that it was that the legislature believes in us enough is also hugely helpful as we go forward. Most recently, we've gotten funding from the City of Federal Way, about $26,000 for general operations and another $51,000 towards the business plan. And again, the fact that we have tangible material support from the city will go a long way as we go forward and start seeking grants to build out the building. We've had great relationship building with the state, with the county, with the port, and we are really hitting all really the metrics that we need in order to make this successful. In fact, with the city, when the council voted on our support, it was a unanimous vote of the council in support of the public market. So that was really huge. And I think every single government entity and representative that we've talked to about the market and our plans has been very supportive of the idea and and are willing to try to pitch in wherever they can. We also have quite a few local nonprofit supporters, like including Lions, Kiwanis, and Fusion. They all support us. We've talked with the Multi-Service Center about how we can work together on these things as well. So we're really developing a great base of support. We've also gotten some very tangible support from local businesses. For instance, the Hampton Inn has provides us a boardroom every month to meet in, and they're super excited about the prospects of not just the market for how it will be, but it'll also be a big help for their hotel and the local hotels. We also the Puyallup Tribe, the Puyallup Chocolate Company, donated chocolates for the light rail opening. So that was really great to see a partner from here in the area. So what's next for us? Well, it's a lot of big steps, but we've come a good long way. So we need to build and strengthen our board. We currently have 7 board members with plans to get up to about 15. So we're actively looking for people with skill sets that we lack on the board, such as property development, property management. We also need people with deep connections to different parts of the community. Whether that is a faith community or an ethnic community or the business community, since we need to uh, know and understand the needs and concerns of many different constituent communities in the area, we really need to have folks on the board that can represent all those interests to ensure that the market really does is created to serve everybody in the area. And with that, it's really kind of almost chicken and egg with the community engagement. Board members can help with that community engagement. At the same time, in that community engagement, we can find board members that might be of interest to help us develop and continue. So mentioned we need to complete the business plan. The money from the city represents about 25% of that. That takes about 9 months to a year to complete. And the sooner we get that done, the better. The the business plan is kind of like the second major step of how Aaron has recommended that we proceed. The first was the feasibility study, and the second would be the business plan. And with those in hand, and with having shown state support and city support in particular, and other government agencies, and hopefully some modest business grants. With all of those things in place, that's how we start to approach the larger foundations that we need to work with in order to build out the building. So we'll continue our fundraising and planning because all nonprofits need fundraising. In fact, now would be a great time to head over to our website and donate to the cause. Um, but next big thing is to partner with the city and Sound Transit to secure TOD4. So TOD4, unfortunately, does have some dry cleaning fluid contamination on it. The um, environmental report and plan, the cleanup plan, should be out in June. But even kind of regardless of how that plays out, it's not ultimately a showstopper for the market. It can affect residential use of the area, but it shouldn't really have an effect necessarily on the ability of the market to exist there. Um, the best plan that we know to go forward is really for the city to acquire TOD4, and the legislation that created that does allow for a city to take over and develop the property within the confines of the TOD legislation, primarily housing, but the secondary goal of that legislation beyond housing is to have public amenities in those spaces. And the market really does fit well within what the TOD legislation requires on that property. What we really need out of all this, and we're working on it, is to get a written commitment that the market will be built on that site. That's something we need to have in hand to really be able to get commitments from those large foundations to to start providing those multi-million dollar grants that we will be able to use for the capital construction of the market. And that's really key because we want to start with basically zero capital debt and then enough funds to get us through that about 3 year period while we're getting the market fully staffed, fully occupied, and up and running and self-sufficient. And that's how you can keep the rents low for your vendors to be able to allow that mix of small vendors to come in into the to the market and draw folks down. And meanwhile, we will be building those relationships with large foundations. Um, a lot of this is about relationship building before you show up hat in hand looking for donations. All right. So the public market, when it's up and running in the downtown core, will really help create a livable, vibrant, and well-connected downtown. The city will benefit from increased revenue through property and sales tax, and really the entire region will benefit from this as a regional attraction to bring people into the South Sound more. We'll create many new small businesses. In fact, the Pike Place Market has created a number of very large successful businesses from within, starting out as small vendors. Like one, for example, the Sur La Table, the high-end kitchen company, started out as a small establishment in the market and then grew and expanded and graduated, as you will. So lastly, the feasibility study says the market will be successful and will transform downtown. And now we are into the next phase of our operation, and we're sharing our progress with you today. And we hope that some of you might be willing to join us on this journey or support us and spread the word of what the market is and what it can be, and hope and share our enthusiasm for where we can go on this. So thank you for your time, and we're happy to take any questions. And it's just a little taste of what that plaza could look like for a holiday market, just to whet your appetites.
All right, Greg, I'm going to take you back to the question about the contamination. I know you said there was dry cleaner fluid on ours, but there was fuel contamination on another lot, right?
That's right. TOD3, the southern one, had a gas station on there, and the gas and oil contamination, my understanding is easier cleanup comparatively, and they also know who owned the gas station. The big oil company will pay for it. That's an extremely common case. I'm not sure there's been a gas station that didn't end up leaking a little bit into the ground. Uh, Dry cleaning fluid's a bit more of a challenge, but it's certainly not insurmountable. Aaron said it's not something that would dissuade him. In fact, I think he and Mark said that they've never developed a public market on a site that was already developed that didn't have some level of contamination. That's just the fact of our developed world.
And then given that there's the dry cleaning fluid on that lot, do we have a time frame when we can break ground?
Hmm. That really comes down to the results of that study released in June. Um, Best case scenario would be to open the market in 3.5 years if everything really came together. Um, there's a lot of ways you can remediate dry cleaning fluid from what I've read. Some involve a whole lot of digging, some of it's wells. They already took, I think, like 12 feet or more of topsoil out of the TOD area. In fact, that one of the plumes covered parts of TOD 1 and 2, and the soil remediation they did there, along with a vapor barrier, apparently is enough for them to be able to build. There's a deeper, slightly different chemical that's kind of situated in the middle of TOD4, and that's probably the big one, the challenge to get that out. But it's not insurmountable.
Given the size we're looking at, do we know about how many vendors we can have in their maximum, or are we still working on that?
We're still working on that. That'll be part of the business plan to get that vendor mix. Again, part of that community input will be to what kind of vendors do people want to have in the market? What kinds of vendors are in the community that can are interested in bringing their wares out? In fact, didn't really talk too much about the incubator part, but that's the incubator part of it, which would be nonprofit run as well, would help get those entrepreneurs started with help with business licenses, with taxes, with marketing, and 6 months, say, of booth space to get them off the ground and running. And that's going to be part of that variety that the market will see on a regular basis that will bring repeat customers.
Mhm. And I know we've touched on a couple of markets that we like. There's one that we don't like. Can you address what happened at Waterfront Market?
Yeah, Rustin. So that was basically a sort of an amenity. Mostly it was originally about half, 50% grocery store was the goal, and kind of slapped public market label on the side of it, but didn't really do the due diligence to make sure that it would really work as a public market. One thing you'll see is that the farmers market is separated. There's some kind of antagonism there. And public markets and farmers markets work great together. So some of that tells me that they really didn't do good due diligence. Clearly, their finances were not great because that piece of property has changed hands a few times. And virtually every successful public market is run by a nonprofit, which is what ours will be. That was definitely not nonprofit run. A nonprofit, um, you you follow your mission and not follow the dollars. I mean, obviously, you have to make a profit enough to maintain the building, keep it upgraded, but you don't have to chase dollars to meet some goal of a return on investment or to satisfy shareholders, and you have that nonprofit board to basically stay on mission. So I think Point Ruston is an example of what happens if you don't do the due diligence that we've done. Like I said, we're doing the feasibility study, we're doing the business plan, we're getting all of our ducks in a row, and we're following, Aaron's plan, and you cannot argue with the success of, 60 plus markets around the world, and how Pike Place Market went from nearly dead to being the juggernaut that it is today.
Yeah, so it's fascinating to be able to watch the ones that are good, but it's also a lesson to learn from the ones that aren't doing it correctly,
What not to do.
what not to do. All right, so you've laid out a plan for the land to be transferred to the city. What's the plan for the building? Are we going to own it or are we going to lease space?
There are a couple ways to do it. Most likely, the building would be owned by the city or the developer that ends up developing it, and we would enter a long-term lease for the space. So, for instance, if it was a 5 or 6 story building with housing above, we would raise enough money to cover our portion of the building and the interior fitting, and then enter into like a $1 a year, 50-year lease. That's a very common structure for a public market.
And I'm going to break in and say Amanda is here from the MSC and she's pointing out that they got the bid for lots 1 and 2, and they're looking forward to collaborating with us on the market space. So we're really happy about that.
Awesome. Well, congrats
Yes,
to MSC and to that whole team. That'll be awesome.
it will be great. So in building this building, do we have an approximate construction cost that was built into the feasibility study, or is that next steps?
Yeah, it varies depending on which floor. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I think it was about $400 a square foot for the ground floor, like $300 a square foot for above that, and then like $100 a square foot for a rooftop. 'Cause we definitely want a flat rooftop up there to enjoy the views and to have a rentable space for events, parties, whatever. So to do a little bit of public math, but we're talking probably in the, 20, 30, $40 million range, depending on, construction prices are going up, that we would have to raise for the building. But keep in mind, Aaron Zaretsky has helped raise over $250 million for uh, public market development. So there are sources of funding out there, and he has been able to tap into them, and we will definitely be leaning on his expertise as we pursue those grants. And we're following the process that will lead us to that. As I said, not just the feasibility study and the business plan, but the fact that the state has supported us, that the city is behind us, that as and we talked about it on at the light rail opening with so many folks, is just having your email, getting our newsletter is helpful because that tells these foundations how many people support us and how big of an impact that we can have.
Speaking of impact, we talked a little bit about the business incubator, but we haven't talked about how we're going to help the arts.
We've been chatting with the pack about this as well. We really want to ensure that we have space for buskers around the market. One of the more current thought processes and designs in the plaza is to actually have like a platform band shell kind of thing on it. We definitely don't want to cannibalize the market of the pack, but we want to work together, at least for musical artists, that we can work together. I really think in the future, when the market's fully built out, having events where you can go to dinner at the market and then go up to the show at the pack, or vice versa, I think would be hugely beneficial for us both. And we definitely want to showcase arts in and around the market as well. We'd love to see some murals, some statuary kinds of things. One of the I would say a stretch goal would be to have like a the Dambo Trolls, but like maybe one that's kind of more Sasquatch-like. Um, that's been it was something that our founder Roger Flygare was really fond of, the Sasquatch, everything Sasquatch, and we've been thinking about that as kind of a tourist attraction. The Dambo Trolls draw a lot of people in and would be a really cool thing to see, and they're not all just troll looking. He's made some that look a little bit different, but yeah, we'd love to showcase the arts, visual artists, musical artists, and work with the pack to make sure that we can really attract all that talent into the area.
And then talk a little bit about what kinds of things we could do on this plaza.
Sky's the limit. There's so many. I think Cindy Laws, our lobbyist that is working with us, has helped a lot of our success. Um, there's like 14 festivals of light that happen kind of during the winter months, and imagine getting just half or a third of those to have their celebrations, at the plaza. We've got a fundraising idea that we were thinking about starting like every April or May. It would be out there. We're thinking about really, we'd love to see a blueberry festival here in the city, tying in with the Hylobos Blueberry Patch that's just on the southern end of the Hylobos wetlands. Um, and then, like I said, Oktoberfest, holiday markets, there's, I don't know, a dozen different New Year's festivals. So we'd really love to see all the different, faith communities, ethnic communities, if they've got a celebration of some kind and they would like to share that with the general public, have it at the market. I think that would be awesome. If we could just tap into half of what's celebrated around here, we could probably have something big every other weekend.
And speaking of every other weekend, on the weekends that we're not doing a festival, there's a lot of things we can do to involve the 15 to 30 crowd that doesn't have a place to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking in addition to, you know, faith communities and all that. We also need to talk to the different age communities. What do seniors want to see in this? What do the 20 and 30 somethings want? What do teenagers, what gets them out to have some good, safe, clean fun out there in town? Um, I'm a little ways past my 30s, so I don't know what 30-year-old me needed in there, but we'll definitely be talking to all these different age groups and make sure we consider what they need out of the market.
All right, I'm going to take you back a little bit. Is there an overall timeline for planning, design, and construction? Currently, Federal Way is the south terminus of the light rail. We were originally told 5. It's looking like more like 10, maybe longer. Um, which brings us to the benefits regarding commutes from outside of Federal Way. But on the time limit until the Tacoma extension is complete, how will we capitalize on being the end of the line?
Um, there's a number of ways. So with this being the end of the line for 7 to 10 years, you're going to get a lot of people from the south end parking here for going to work and for sporting events. I think there's really an opportunity for us to partner with the those big sport teams up, the Kraken, Mariners, etc. Um, for advertising, things like that in the market, kind of as a jumping off point when people go to games or to swing by after games. And to get the market in place here in a few years, it will really become part of everyone's routine that, you get up there a little early, but you go into the market, and or hit the market on your way back. And I think it'll become just part of everybody, the daily tapestry of life for so many people. And then when the train, light rail train station, or train line extends down to Tacoma, that will remain as something that people have done and will continue to do in the future. So we really don't want to pass up on this opportunity to really create something that will become just part of people's daily life.
Can you draw a distinction between what's going to happen in the short term as far as traffic goes to what the concept is for this whole area in the future?
Probably gets a little bit beyond my area of expertise. Undoubtedly, more people means more traffic, but I think Sound Transit's goal really, they want to make places where people don't necessarily have to have cars to get around. So, um, we have a 1,500 space parking garage, around the north end of all this. I'm sure they'll have to put parking in those buildings. That's really not my area of expertise. There is a plan to put a wide pedestrian bridge across 320th, that people can basically just easily walk from, the transit area across into the commons area, back and forth without having to wait at a traffic light or walk upstairs and go across the narrow bridge, which is not popular as it turns out. Um, but the goal is to make that whole area in the city is stated to make it walkable, accessible, and and obviously you got to account for cars because cars aren't going anywhere. But I don't know all the details there. I mean,
Yeah.
I even talk about like underground parking garages, maybe up at the TC3, but that stuff's wickedly expensive. Well, no, the city has talked about adding parking garage like across from the pack as well. So the city is definitely aware of the traffic and they're doing what they can.
Let's talk about that in the transit. We know there's limited ways of getting around. We as a board have talked about the kind of the handcuff we have with Sound Transit. What are we going to do about getting people around the city?
Well, we've had a couple of ideas. For instance, like the when the NCAA swimming tournaments are happening at the aquatic center, um, I think one of the things we could do when we have the market and with the light rail and with hotels right there is you can get folks down and maybe convince them not to rent a car. Just come down on the light rail, get to your hotel, but then have like a shuttle bus that can run folks from the downtown core over to the aquatic center and back every 15, 30 minutes. And then that would be a great time for events at the pack to have a night market, keeping the market open till 10 o'clock at night. So, that $150 that people were going to spend on their rental car, instead they can spend it downtown here. And another thing I want to explore, because we've got some great gardens. We've got the bonsai and the rhododendron garden there across I-5.
Palace
We've
Wood.
Howell's Wood. I think the Hylobos wetland is pretty cool. Technically not federal way, but you've got the Marine Science Center, which is a point of interest in Redondo Beach. So why not on Saturdays and Sundays have a hop on, hop off shuttle that can take you? Oh, and the Korean Garden. I haven't been over there yet.
Oh, it's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, and so why not have a bus that will hop you around those spots and be a reason to come down, either drive or on light rail, go to the market, hop on that bus, go see these spots, come back to the market for lunch or dinner. I think it's an opportunity for us to really, start to create that kind of reason for people to come to Federal Way and South Sound.
Well, and not only that, but as we started looking at the hop on, hop off bus, I got approached by one specific community that said, could you do one for us? And I was like, oh, we have to think about that. So we have to talk to all of our senior citizens communities about can we do just one bus for all of them?
I That's definitely something we'll have to talk with the city about or see if that's something that the downtown businesses will support. But it's definitely an area that we have to explore, and I think it could be hugely valuable.
Mhm. And we have about 10 minutes left. Is anybody have any more questions about specific things? We're going to do a lot of focus on younger kids. For example, if I run into a child who wants to have a business, I will do everything I can to bend over backwards to give him a spot because I want him to learn how to fail forward. As a kid, I don't want them to be an adult and then, push in a lot of money and then not figure out how to do it. I want them to, it takes about 6 or 7 times of running a business before you figure out what you don't want to do and do it right the last time. So making sure these kids understand how to run a business and get them trained in the entrepreneurial mind before they get set on having a job, I think is a good thing.
I think Dave's got his hand up.
Dave,
Yeah, can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah, so there have been a lot of questions about, there was a question about the cost of the building and everything, and the question has been, are we intending to build the building and have to raise whatever amount of thousands of dollars it is to build it, or would you lease? And I think our desire is that whoever owns the property, whether it be the city or Sound Transit, that they would have a developer develop the building, but that the bottom two floors would be leased to the public market. So we wouldn't have to, so we would have to pay, we'd have to raise the money to outfit the first two floors, which we've also talked about that we've heard over and over again, the need for community meeting space. And so the second floor might be a shared area for community meeting space and that kind of thing. So that the question about how much this would cost, it will greatly vary based on whether we can lease or whether we have to raise it to build the building itself.
Yeah, definitely the goal will be to raise money from these large foundations that Aaron has shown is possible for the capital construction costs so that the in the end we don't have a huge mortgage basically to pay in order to get underway. And it
Yeah.
sounds daunting. It's a lot of work, but it's been done time and again, and that's our plan.
I think our preference is to own the building because we'd have more control over how it's used. If we're a landlord in a building, anything can happen, and that's not a position we want to be in.
Yeah. Again, none of us are property managers or property developers on the board, so that is why one of those positions we'd love to have is that. So we've been listening to Aaron's expertise and advice on this, and that's where we're going. So
Hey, can I put Mark on the spot?
I'll unmute myself.
Do you have any comments or thoughts or things you want to explain to people?
Well, I'll just, there's so many things that are rolling through my head, but one thing was exciting to me when I went back and saw Bellevue after, I don't know, 30 years or something. It was the space was a lot of the space was passive use, and when I was there, there was a volleyball tournament going on. So I think the other thing that you're talking about is how do you get kids, younger people there. One thing we were trying to do in Atlanta was to have they had a basketball thing, and the kids would actually get on the train and go from one place to another, one venue to another. So there's a lot of ideas. The other public art has been something I've always had a passion for. And what I would suggest is that you engage in your art community in some way. um, that can manage that process, and that can be a separate process from the building, and it needs to have representatives of the art community to engage it, so it has credibility with the arts groups when it gets decided and developed. And I like art that is integral. I did a project in the airport in Milwaukee, and the floor was designed by an artist. And the only idea I had was, oh, why don't you just have the floor look like something you see the land from the air? And then he rolled out this in a meeting without me seeing it ahead of time, and he did this drawing that was like 12 feet long of the floor, and it was exactly what we talked about, but it was much more interesting than what I was thinking. But so artists can surprise you, but I like art that is part of it, part of the and oftentimes can be better than you can imagine because it's something else. Cincinnati has a mural art program that they have a lot of old buildings that have blank walls on one side, and they've got a program where they add the art to the community all year long, from year to year. And so there's a lot of things that you've kind of touched on that are really important ideas and need. And you can set up, you should set up committees of people that are with different agendas and different things over time as we get rolling on this.
And that's why we need more board members too.
Yeah, but delegate it to the art thing is have that be something else. Oh, that tracks money too, because people will give money to the arts in a special way, and that you can really kind of take when we did the floor in the airport, our budget for a fall, make up a number was $15-20 a square foot. Well, the artist's work was more than that, but it more than paid for itself. And getting the donation, somebody put their name on it, and we got donation. We did I did a theater project one time where there's 5 different major art components of the project. Lighting was one of them. The exterior landscape was another one. So we engaged, and we had a program in that case of engaging local artists.
Mm-hmm. Well, Janina's on our arts commission, and she's got a question. So I'm assuming it relates to art, huh, Janine?
Yeah, I will talk with the people on the Arts Commission and see if maybe we could schedule a time to have you come over. By the way, we now meet, and the meetings are always open. We now meet at 8 a.m. the first Thursday of every month. And I'll look into it. And right now I'm the co-chair, but we're turning that over to Cindy Dusich. And Karen Bragato is currently the chair, and she's turning it over to Tom Bristol. But more than that, we've talked a lot and learned a lot about murals on the sides of buildings and what the rules are and how much of a logo you can put on it to identify yourself, but not make it look like a sign. There are different things that we as the Arts Commission might be able to help with, or at least introduce you to the people who can work on that.
Yeah,
so,
and I'll be back to the Arts Commission after the first of the year.
Yeah, great. Well, that's great.
It's been a rough year.
Yeah, it has.
And it looks like, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, one thing you might notice at Town Square Park, you can see one of the electrical boxes that we have changed. We work with the artists to create artwork, and then Fast Signs, or one of the other local printers, actually measures and fits it. But there's also the Public Works is now doing that with some trash cans. They're wrapping because we showed them what we're doing, and they decided they like it too. So there might be even more ways. And Anne, we had talked about the flooring. Like there's a type of concrete where you can pour water on it, and the Federal Way Public Market logo might show up. But I haven't explored that.
We'll devise a committee to look at that, because we're well out of time. We need that, but we need to start coming up with ideas.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. I got you back. And looks like Dave has a question.
Yeah, it was more, someone in the questions there was asking for the information on who they would contact if they wanted the presentation. I don't know what groups are represented here, but And maybe you can pop that into the
I'll do
comments
that again.
again.
I did. I
Yeah.
put it already, but I'll do it again.
Yeah, just so that it's top of mind.
Got it.
Because as Greg said, I'm the secretary of the board, and as Greg said, our efforts beyond getting the business plan done, and actually part of the business plan process is to engage with the community in a variety of ways. And so if you want us to come out and give a presentation like this or something similar, then feel free to reach out to us. Or if you're interested in being represented on the board or in some other way involved, then get in touch.
Presentations are free, by the way. We don't charge for those. We probably should, but we don't.
One thing I could add about the business plan, which wasn't mentioned, is typically with Aaron, we've kind of gone as part of the plan, done some design work, and the building gets kind of programmed in terms of what all its uses are, and then we go through and we do at least a schematic design plan, and here's what it is, and here's the type of vendors we would have. We don't, and then we stop really there until then the fundraising begins in earnest after that business plan gets done. But there is some significant design work that happens. It's funny, again, I'll do Bellevue again. Bellevue was a sketch, and it was an international design competition, and this little firm in Milwaukee won it. It was pretty amazing, but I think its beauty was it had a formality to it with the canal, but a lot of passive use, which was something I really enjoyed seeing after those years. So there's a process going forward, and the business plan includes the initial design work.
Thanks, Mark.
Excellent. All right, we've got about 2 minutes left. Any closing comments?
Well, if you need to reach out to us, we have an email address at info@fedwaypm.org. Goes to most of the members of the board, and we can get back to you as well.
I also encourage folks, Greg did on a slide, maybe the one before this, had our website address. You can go there if you haven't registered to receive our emails and correspondence. You can go there. Also, if you are generous enough to be able to contribute in some way, if you want to communicate with us, that's a good place to do it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate that. We do have, if you want to be part of the board or you want to be an ambassador, if you have a great idea you want to have included in that we haven't talked about yet today, please reach out to one of us. We are absolutely open to public comments and public input. We absolutely need that. And I think we'll give a minute back of your time. Well, thank you for joining us today. We certainly appreciate it. Keep in touch, and we'll be sending out new newsletters for you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, everyone.